Welcome everyone to this special City Council special work session for October 18th, 2021. Lindsay, could you call the roll?
Dora,
Here.
Cummins,
Here.
Scott,
Here.
Fritz,
Here.
Manetza.
Here. We have two items of business in this work session. First, we will hear from Char Stacey and her team on the Community Center Strategic Plan.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Thank you for this opportunity to address the challenges that we've been facing in this last year since COVID with the community center's budget. We think we have a pretty robust plan on how we can address the situation that we're currently faced with. And first, I'd like to introduce our community center board. We have 4 of our 5 board members here tonight. Sandy Cat, Jim Parenta, Maggie Banstra, and Doug Van Oss, so in this little section right here. And then Angela Sorensen was not able to join us tonight. But 3 of our 5 board members are new since summertime. So we've got some new opportunities with new board members, which has, I think, given us some new ideas for ways that we can address some of the things that we're going to discuss tonight in our community center business plan and strategic plan. So Ashley's given me control of the remote, so there we go. I would just want to give you a little overview for the public to hear a little bit of an overview of the community center. Currently, we average about 700 rentals a year, and everything that I'm going to talk about currently is really based on our last normal year of 2018, 2019. Our building was created in 1966, and that was based on a partnership with the Loudoun Foundation and a lot of community donations as well. The building is over 10,000 square feet. We've got a wonderful commercial kitchen. We've got a 181-seat theater and a lot of outdoor, not outdoor, but a lot of rooms for rentals for different things like weddings and baby showers and life celebrations. We had a renovation in 2007, which added the additional square footage that brought us to 10,000 square feet. And that was done in partnership to host the then NACOA, which is now 4 Points, the senior center. And they were in the building for a number of years until 2012 when Muskegon Community College became a partner with the city. And they occupied space in the building until the end of school year 2018. In a normal year, the community center would use about $200,000 to $250,000 from the general fund on an annual basis. So rental revenues alone don't sustain that building. We do a lot of gratis work with our interdepartmental meetings. We host other important trainings like for public safety or perhaps mental health forums and a variety of things like that that we don't earn any revenue from. In 2018, the community center had a huge loss when Muskegon Community College decided to build south of town. That was a hit to our budget, and it was a significant hit. And then adding COVID 2020 statistics onto that just kind of compounded the impacts of the loss of the MCC partnership that we had. We've been working diligently to try to find a new partner for that lower level space, but it's very unique. We need a unique partner, one that's either willing to rent the entire lower level or perhaps partner with us to rent some of the space and then maybe program some of the space. So a lot of those conversations have continued and have not come to fruition yet. So it's been a challenge, but there's been a lot of conversations going on. Historically, we really do have the majority of our renters come from city residents. We see an untapped market in our broader regional community and know that that's an opportunity that has gone untapped that we have plans to address in the future. One thing that we have identified in this process is that when the persons who are of the 20, 30-something age range, they're not stopping in at the community center like your 60, 70, or 80-year-old person. They're looking first to find whatever resource they're looking for through an internet search. And hidden in government is the community center. It's not one of those first venues that you find when you're looking for perhaps searching a Grand Haven wedding venue. It's not going to be the first thing that pops up in that search engine. So we're realizing that is something that we've got to combat, and thinking about how do we reach those potential users. How can we simplify the process for people once they do find us? Those are some things that we'd like to address and have found to be challenges. One of our most significant challenges, I think, going forward is we have a 20-year millage that is sunsetting here in 2021. So we will lose this millage that we have had to be able to do improvements and repairs, purchase new equipment, and that type of thing. So there's a lot of great things about the community center, and for the operations itself, there's not another facility like it in the Tri-Cities. There are a lot of similar businesses, but there is nothing as unique as the community center, where you can bring in your own caterer, you can bring in your own beverage service company. Our rentals are not tied to a preferred vendor list, and that's a very marketable trait that we have that many of our other competitors don't have. We have that frontline staff person who's always answering the phone, somebody that you're going to be able to get to when they do call in and be able to get your questions answered. We are in a great location. We have great options for weddings with our reception space inside, along with a park wedding. We also have discounted that rate when somebody decides they want to have a rental with a wedding and a park ceremony. Those two things we can capitalize on together and have some really great celebrations in our community. We see a lot with our current budget. We see a lot of aspirations to increase our revenue. We know that the bottom line does not work, and we have some great solutions to be able to combat those things that we're currently faced with. One thing that we want to continue to do in our community is to continue to provide a great quality service and a great building that is maintained really, really well. We do have a lot of opportunities in different ways that we maybe could capitalize on. It hasn't been historical that the community center staff has done programming, but there are opportunities that we can look to maybe diversify funding streams instead of just having our rental revenue. For example, we could probably write some grants to do some more performances that could offset costs for rental space or staffing. Those are some things that we have not utilized in the past that we could perhaps consider going forward. We have a lot of programming that is done that is not done by us, and we do have some community partners that we've been in communication with to perhaps do some programming within that space. Again, some of those things are long-term, takes a little bit of time to figure some things out, but we're working on it on our end. A key thing that we really believe is critical to being able to move forward from a venue perspective is rebranding and renaming the community center. We've discussed a lot of things internally and with the board. There are just new and creative ways that we can rebrand that can put us at that top of that search engine list when you're looking for things and doing that Google search. So if we were to implement some of these things that we've talked about, we would like to see an increase in our revenue. We would like to increase the occupancy at the community center. We have a lot of activity going on all the time. It is traditionally more busy on a weekend, on a Saturday, on a Sunday. Performances are happening then, weddings are happening then. Meeting times during the day for businesses It doesn't seem as busy, but we have some regular users like Rotary and Business Network International that come in to our facility, and many others as well. So one of the ideas that we had brainstormed is, how do we make the community center a more inviting and community-friendly type of building? And one of the ideas that we had thought about to support local business and to perhaps address some of the things that we think are needed in the community is to possibly have a tenant occupy some new space on the main level and provide some sort of beverage and snack service. Central Park Players, for example, they do their intermission, and they always are trying to scramble to find more volunteers to provide snacks. If you go to bigger places like the Frohenthal, they have someone in there that's providing that as a service to the patrons there. And so this is one of those ideas that we thought could generate some more revenue and could also generate some more interest. We do have the ability to give people in the public that might want to come in the option to connect to the internet there, so it would be a great place to have, coffee meeting, good place for a student to do some homework, and maybe just a good place for friends to get together and have a conversation. Then when you look at the lower level, we've really looked at the space traditionally as the offices. There are three very distinct areas. Office spaces that are back there have 4 offices, a place where you could have a board meeting, and then another area in that lower level space where you could actually have maybe your supply center, your copy machine. And it is able to be accessed from a private entrance so that you wouldn't have to go through the other rentable spaces. So we've just shaded those areas off. There's 3 different areas that could be looked at individually for different organizations. The ideal tenant for us would be somebody that was very similar to Muskegon Community College, where they would occupy the space during the daytime, programming that space, and then in the evenings, and then have the space available on the lower level for weekend activities that we have normally in those spaces currently. So that would be the ideal tenant if we could select the tenant that we have. So we are going to continue to look for that right partner and hope that they will come to fruition very, very soon. So some of our intentional uses, as I've said already, are things that normally happen. We've got Central Park Players that's been there since 1966. We have other events that happen in there, expos that happen. We have the Ottawa County departments come and have meetings there. We have so much that happens intentionally within our community. And then there's some very passive type activities that happen that could really, I think, be beefed up to draw in more people into the facility, as well as to draw in some more revenue. Some of the unique things that we have with our new board members is we have, somebody who's very business focused, somebody who's in the arts community, and those are new things that we have available to us, and we have somebody that's a marketing person. So it's really sparking a lot of ideas and a lot of ways that we can address the budget deficit that we currently have. So we talked about the rebranding, talked about a little bit about what we could do to increase the activity in the community center. As I said, when we were doing some of our numbers and looking back to see where our customer base was coming from, it's primarily city residents. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to market to our broader community that's just not being done yet. And with social media, that's something that if we're able to do some rebranding, and I know that this is probably maybe not something to talk about here, but even potentially have our own web page, something that doesn't necessarily fall under the city of Grand Haven for a person to do their initial search. That might help us as we work to market ourselves on social media and increase the activity there. So current staffing, you have myself there as the community affairs manager. I wear several hats in my role. I have a major part in the processing of special events, park rentals, as well as the responsibilities at the community center. And then we have an admin tech, and that admin tech person is also a full-time person. And their major role is to assist me, answer the phone, greet the customer. She does a lot of setup things during the day. For example, if somebody rents the coffee from us, she would be the one that we would be having make the coffee. And if there are any kind of issues that we have during the day, if there's toilet paper that needs to be replaced, she's going to take care of that. She'll be the one that's doing a lot of the day of assessing with the customer of what their needs are. If there's a sign that needs to be made to make sure that everybody knows where that particular meeting is, she's going to take care of those things for us. So as we move forward, some of the ideas that I've shared with you have a cost to them. And the things that we're looking at doing, I want to make sure that you're aware, would not be asking for any additional money than we already have in the coffers. So with the millage that we have, the only things that we can currently do with that are make improvements. We can't pay staff salaries, can't pay the utilities, we can't do any of those other things. So if we look at perhaps creating that welcoming center where you have beverage and snacks available, there's a cost to that. If we were able to get our own website and create some really unique marketing opportunities for us, those things we would use the millage funds to be able to do to bring us to that next level. So for our overall long-term success, and I know we have a slide coming up, we really are talking about a variety of things, and I look at the community center like I would look at a nonprofit. We're currently strapped financially because we're only looking at one revenue stream to offset the costs of running the business, basically, and that is rentals. And our rental fees are very affordable. If we were to double our rental fees, we would not even meet the current market standards that are out there today. So we have sort of a threefold way of thinking about how we increase revenue and occupancy at the community center. And it includes increasing our rates, increasing our occupancy, and generating really that client that's going to be occupying that space down in the lower level, that anchor tenant, is really going to be key to the success of the community center's future. So how do we think that we will be able to meet these goals, and how will we be able to tell you and the public that we've met these goals that we're trying to achieve? We would create customer satisfaction surveys. Every customer that we get at the community center, we have an email and a phone number for, so they can, we can create small surveys that every time we have a customer experience, we can get a survey from them. We can ask for them to like us on our Facebook page and post their pictures to our social media so that we can get more and more traction there. We can look at increasing that annual revenue and report back to the public that we're doing that. We can count numbers. Every event that comes into the community center, we are always asking how many people are coming to the party, because we need to know how to set the room up. So all those numbers are readily available to us, and we can easily track that and monitor that to see if we're exceeding our expectations. And then again, the occupancy rate. Going out there, I have files and files and files of years past clients. We can go back, we can make sure that people know that we're still here, that our rates are still affordable. COVID has not only hurt the rentals from the perspective that we could only have 25 people in the room at a time, but it's also given businesses new opportunities for themselves to see how can we do business different, can we do things online? And some of those financial things that we would invest in were some of those technology things to bring us up to the 21st century so that we can offer that to our customer to say, yes, you want to run a Zoom meeting here and you want to stream it live on Facebook at the same time, that we could do those things without without technical difficulties. So as you see in this chart on the left, our current expenses are extremely high compared to what our revenue is. And again, you know, there's the great COVID crisis. It's impacted us, and it's going to impact us for a little while longer because people are still concerned about getting out in large spaces, even if there are no restrictions on those indoor gatherings. So we're seeing things ramp up. We are getting busier and busier and more calls for future rentals, which is a really great thing. We're really happy about that. So if you look at the impacts of the proposed changes that we have, like I said, we started with that base year of 2018, 2019 when it was normal. If we did a doubling of our proposed rates, you would see an increase immediately in revenues. And then we have some other options of potentially maybe bringing things in at 25% increases incrementally, 50% increases incrementally. So I think critical for us is, looking at different funding streams. I think that there's options to consider too, and I know that this is a big one, but we could also consider having an operating millage. The rents alone will never sustain the community center. That's just an unrealistic expectation. And so I think as we look forward, as the board looks forward, they're looking for some sort of affirmation from council as to next steps with our new board members, especially, what is acceptable. This is new and a challenging time for us, and we do believe that we have a great solution to overcome the challenges that we're facing. And the community center is such a great place for us as a whole, as a community. I think that it provides a quality of life ingredient where people feel welcomed, people feel a place of belonging, and those are very, very important to any community's quality of life. So that is our presentation, and I am open for questions, comments.
Anyone have questions for Shar?
I'll start out. Since its inception, when we first started out, it's never been a profit center, and it's never meant to be a profit center. It's got a name called the community center, and that's what the community voted for the use of it and all that. I like a lot of your ideas, the website and on rebranding and stuff like that. I think those are good ways to start. We got to be very careful with the rate increases, because sometimes when you get rate increases, you do lose some income from that point. But I think by a lot of these things that you have down here, I think it'd be a great asset for us to get it out there more than what we do now. You're absolutely correct. When you look at it, it's just at the City of Grand Haven website. But if we have its own standalone website for them to come over and look at it, they get a bit more attraction, and that's what we need today. We need to get out there and get it out there on the market more. And I think you'll see a lot more interest. It's the community center. I remember when it was first built, my sister worked there when she was just getting out of high school and that, and she worked with a guy named Bill Law. Tommy's dad was there, and he was one pretty much on that. And I think the highest it's ever done was, what, 60% was maybe? Am I correct on some close to that through the years? If you look through I don't think we've ever made 100%. I think it's only been 60% was probably our highest ever.
Yeah, I would say that's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah, so I liked a lot of these ideas. I think it's a good way for us to move forward on it and making it look and do and actually get promotion out there. We need to get it more focal to get the numbers down. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck in the rut like we are right now. We need to move forward on it and get in with the times and keep moving forward. I like this. Thank you very much. You guys did a very good hard work on it. I appreciate everything that you sent to us. But you just got to be careful when you raise rates. We can do it gradually. I like the 5-year plan, just gradually bringing it up if you have to. But we just got to be careful, because sometimes when you raise rates, you don't attract people. Some people will go someplace else, and so, but you got to have something nice there for them to come to in the meantime too. So thank you very much. It's a very good presentation. I like it a lot.
Thanks, Mike.
I agree with Mike with the website. I think that's would be a benefit to the community center. Also, that beverage bar, I think that's a good idea too. As far as raising rates, I think like Mike said, we have to be careful with that, but I think we do realize we have to get more revenue out of the community center, so I think we're going to have to do that at some point, and I think, you know, it's just inevitable that we're going to do that, so I don't have a problem with that either, so, but I think we need to be on the conservative side with that, and just kind of watch how fast we do that, and but it does have to be done, there's no doubt about that, so. As far as the rest of the plan goes, I think the board did a good job with this, so appreciate all you effort you put into this. I'm sure it's been a lot of work and a lot of time, so thank you.
Thanks, Denny. Anyone else?
Thank you, Shar. I appreciate that you started out with some strengths, because there are a lot of strengths of it, and it's easy for us to focus on the, well, we're losing money, and, you know, start throwing around, you know, different things related to that, but, you know, there's a lot of strengths and good things about our community center and our venue, and the community's invested a lot in it over the years, and you certainly have a lot of staff time into it as well, so thank you for that. And to the board members that are here, you know, and it's nice to hear some new energy, some new ideas, you know, that's, you know, it sounds like we have some good kind of proactive thinking here, instead of maybe some more of the, maybe it's easy to become passive and wait for some, you know, some folks want to utilize it, so maybe this is kind of saying, hey, let's be more proactive to go out and get customers, and that's kind of part of that marketing piece. So, you know, the thoughts about a fresh look and new paint and new carpeting, and I think that's spot on. I think it needs a new look, it needs a fresher look, it needs to be, you know, like the bones are good, we just need to kind of modernize the look and feel of it a little bit. And then with that, you know, you talked about new pictures, and I'm a very visual person, and so I actually did Google wedding venues in Grand Haven. The community center did come up first, but it's kind of got a picture that maybe you wouldn't think of as a wedding venue, right? And so it's about getting those professional photos and getting people who are actually having wedding receptions in there, let people visualize it and see it and get a feel for it. And so that's where, you know, your thoughts about a different, you know, moving the website outside and really rebranding it, I think is spot on, and it definitely needs to be, I think, rebranded, obviously, before you spend the money for a new website and all these other things, and what that name will be, you know, I'll have to discuss, but I think that's spot on. As far as the rates, I think, you know, we're well below where the market would be. I think a lot of convention centers out there and arenas and other places and entertainment venues, they do tend to struggle, especially municipally owned ones, and so I think I agree with the sentiment that, you know, maybe we're never going to completely, you know, we're not going to make money off of this, but, you know, I think our residents expect that we do as good as we can and do better, and I appreciate the plan that's brought here. And so when we're looking at rates, we just got to find that right mix of, you know, what's still going to keep people coming, but we can also kind of raise more off of that, and where's that point where we start really losing a lot of them. You kind of mentioned workspaces. I like that. Art, you touched on it a little bit tonight, but your presentation in our packet had a lot more on that. I mean, that could really be, you know,
Yes.
hey, this is an art center too, that folks, especially if it's, you know, open to the public on a regular basis like it is now. I mean, that's kind of a unique opportunity that I think we have. I think there's an opportunity to do some more program related to, like, concerts, small little things like that. Maybe WGHN and WAWL, we do it during the summertime. Maybe there's some wintertime options there. The countertop insulation, I like the idea. I'm just not sure we're quite there yet. It seems like a big investment. Somebody's got to, you know, some vendor's got to come in and staff it, and you know, so I'd want to hear a little bit more about that, maybe before that investment's made. But, you know, in the end, you're looking at putting some metrics on this, saying, hey, how are we going to measure how we're doing? The last big question I'm going to throw your way, it's just right before 7:30 here, so maybe you can think about it. Well, we need to jump into our other meeting, but, you know, folks are going to ask us, and we got to ask ourselves, and we kind of brought this up a little bit. You know, we're looking at the diesel plant potentially also having some event space. So how does that compete? And you know, is that something the community has to, you know, also recognize as well, that, hey, you know what, that may, you know, affect some of the bottom line numbers here if we're also adding another event space, and how do we compete with something new that's coming on with a different location and offering similar services, so, that's something to kind of touch on too, so, thank you.
All right. Mike and myself, I think we'll have to save our comments because it's reached the 7:30 hour and we need to start our regular meeting. So we'll ask you to kind of step back and just hang out, and we'll come to the point on our agenda where we bring back the work session and complete it. So I'm sure we'll have a few more comments and questions. So thank you, Shar. And at this point, we'll close the work session, and we will bring back the work session and complete it at the appropriate place on our regular agenda. So at this point in time, I'm going to open the regular city council meeting for October 18th, 2021. Linda, would you call the roll?
Dora.
Here.
Cummins.
Here.
Scott.
Here?
Fritz.
Here.
Manetza.
Here. We will have an invocation by Pastor Kurt Winselberger, of St. John's Lutheran Church. Following the invocation, please stand for that, and following the invocation, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, let's pray. Good and gracious Father, we do thank you again for this day, another day that we have had filled with opportunities to enjoy your good creation and the fact that you have placed us here at this time for such a time as this. Lord, so often we try to figure out what that means, but right now we ask for your guidance. We ask for your wisdom to be what guides this evening, all the discussions. Bless all those who are part of this, and we do give thanks to you for those who are willing to serve on our city council, including our mayor, and all those who are part of this great city of Grand Haven. Lord, again, pour out your blessings and give us guidance so that everything would be according to your good and gracious will. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Okay, so tonight we have no appointments to boards and recognition. We do have a presentation this evening. So we have a presentation to WGHN. I believe we have Representative WGHN here tonight. We have a resolution recognizing the WGHN Tuesdays in the Park concert series. Let me read the resolution, and then we'll present it to you and get a handshake and a picture. So, whereas in late 2014, the support for the Central Park Tuesday concert series had diminished, and this long-standing summer staple was at risk of becoming an orphan. And whereas radio personalities, John Roberts and Jesse Bruce, saw opportunity where others saw trouble, and they proposed to radio station management and ownership that Grand Haven's favorite, WGHN, adopt this orphan and breathe new life into it. And whereas in 2015, 92.1 WGHN's Tuesdays in the Park found a new home when the 10-show series kicked off in Central Park on June 21st, 2015. And whereas after taking a COVID break in 2020 with the rest of the world, WGHN returned to Central Park in 2021 for its 6th concert season and presented other Grand Haven favorites, Carl Webb Band, Plain Jane Glory, Natchez Trace, the Steve Rivers Band, and Max and Ruth Bloomquist on consecutive Tuesdays. And whereas several sponsors have made these shows possible, including Grand Haven Main Street, Appliance Appliance Outlet and Home, Sean Cook Law, Grand Haven Area Community Foundation, Pliant Plastics, the City Farmer, First Priority, Piece of Cake, and JW's Food and Spirits. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and the city council express deep gratitude to the following individuals who have made this concert series possible: John Roberts, Jesse Bruce, Will Tiemann, Wendy Hart, Mike Toth, and the late and much beloved Leslie Cassis Witham, Vicki Colson, Rose Dunlap, and Mary Ellen Murphy. They shared their passion for live music with the people of Grand Haven. So, thank you.
We'll have to get that corrected. I don't know why. It's not like it's weird, you know, it's not like.
I can see it in this weekly report now, too.
Right here?
Testing, 1, 2, check. We are very privileged to be the ones that continued the great tradition that the city began with Tuesdays in the Park. And it just seems like it's such a part of summer now that we wouldn't do without it. So we try every year to better ourselves and to bring family concerts, free family concerts, thank you, to Central Park. And it's just great to see kids and families out enjoying themselves. So thank you to the city for everything you've done for us, too. Thank you.
It's always a pleasure when we can recognize local talent and local enterprise and all the contributions to the community. All right, that brings us to the approval of the consent and regular agendas. Are there any changes?
I have none, Your Honor.
Anything from council? Could you use a motion to approve?
So moved. I'll second it.
Motion by Dora, second by Fritz. Would you call the roll?
Dora,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes?
Fritz,
Yes.
Panetza.
Yes. And that brings us to our call to the audience. This is the first of 2 opportunities to address City Council. At this time, members of the audience may address council on any item, whether on the agenda or not. Those addressing council are asked to provide their name and address. It will be limited to 3 minutes of speaking time. Council will hear all comments for future consideration, but will not have a response at this time. So, if you would like to address council, please come to the podium.
Hello, my name is Cody Arnold. I live at 14882 Spring Lake Drive. I was born here in Grand Haven. Currently, I want to speak to you about the front of the court here in Grand Haven as well as nationwide. I'm going to tell you a story. My son was born when I was 18 years old. Today, I am 29 years old. Over the course of the last 11 years, I've had many highs and many lows. The biggest low has been concurrent. That is with my oldest son, Cameron. I come from a poverty-stricken, alcohol and drug-addicted family that overwhelmingly taught me ignorance. I have experienced many traumas, from domestic violence to seeing my mother crying because she can't pay the bills or buy me the gift that I wanted for my birthday. None of that comes close to the pain I experience every day, knowing that the Ottawa County Court is actively keeping me from equal parenting time and equal rights to my son, intentionally abusing their power and lining their pockets at the cost of my life, my son's life, and millions of lives across the country. I ask you today to recognize this perverse laws that are allowing this unconstitutional and downright disgraceful actions to continue. To recognize that the lack of ownership and accountability that is on full display within the 58th District Court must be addressed, not only for my son and our family, but for the 24 million children in the United States that are in fatherless homes, largely due to the immoral and unjust laws forcing trauma and pain on good, hardworking citizens of this country, destroying the future before it even had a chance. I'll finish with my 3 minutes with this here.
Nothing short of state-sponsored abduction and trafficking of our children for profit. Worst of all, this corruption is committed under the guise that it's all done in the best interest of our children. Well, I got a news flash for everyone in this room today. 90% of all homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes, 32 times the average. 85% of all children who show behavior disorders come from fatherless homes, 20 times the average. 80% of rapists with anger problems come from fatherless homes, 14 times the average. 71% of all high school dropouts come from fatherless homes, 9 times the average. So when the family courts tell us that you're taking our children away from fathers and driving those fathers into poverty through the racketeering and extortion activities of Title IV-D, that it's all done in our child's best interest, excuse me when I say I don't know what the hell any of you are talking about. I'd like to leave you guys with a quote. The state must declare the child to be the most precious treasure of the people. As long as the government is perceived as working for the benefit of the children, the people will happily endure almost any curtailment of liberty and almost any deprivation. Adolf Hitler. Thank you.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Cody. Who's next?
Good evening, Jim Hagan, 400 Lake. I've got two items I would like to just quickly mention. One, I was very pleased to read about the community center and the effort to rebrand and improve. And along those thoughts, I previously talked about BLP and their search for office. And once again, I think this just points out we need a full court press of all the leaders in our community to really have the discussions with BLP on why that lower level, it has a double door entrance, it's got its own parking, it's got an executive door, why it can't be used. It seems to me that if we're losing that money, BLP's looking for an office, it's right next to the AT&T building, talk about fiber optics and so forth. It's got all the connectivity you would ever want. So I'm asking everyone who's in positions at the city to really have good discussions with BLP on use of that space. The other item I want to talk about is a handout on affordable housing. And the council has talked about splits a lot. And I don't know if you saw recently, just this last week, another set of splits has been proposed on the Creason House. Split A has just about over 7,500, 7,700 square feet, $320,000. Split B is 0.26 acres, $420,000. So, I mean, all the energy around splitting our lots and making them smaller for affordable housing, I'm asking you, is that affordable? No, it's not. And I don't think that the encouragement of splitting our city lots is a great idea. Frankly, it's ruining our neighborhoods. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Who's next?
Jeremy Swiftney with Grand Haven Main Street, 519 Washington. First, I want to say a big thank you to council members and the community at large who came out and supported our brand new event, Chowdown Centertown, last weekend. I'd say it was far and away a higher turnout than we expected, and we're looking real forward to having a new event next year that's even bigger. The other item I'm here to talk about is our request that you deny the additional seasonal slips at the marina. Looking over the numbers, as somebody who has worked in car rental business for 13 years and understands a thing or two about occupancy, I'm concerned looking at what that could do for our downtown businesses as well as what the bottom line is for the city. In Char's paperwork, I believe it said it was roughly about a $5,000 difference in what they made this year on a seasonal slip on the 4th versus what they would have had if they had rented them for 100% of the occupancy for the weekends. That does not take into account any weekdays that could have been rented. At 4 weeks at 90 to 100% occupancy, you would make up that $5,000. So something to think about when you start looking at changing an additional 5 slips to seasonal that do hurt the local businesses. Somebody like Fortino's, for instance, gave us some numbers. Their average ticket sale, $15 per sale is their average. Their average ticket sale from somebody who's visiting and boating, $175 per sale. So there is definitely a huge increase to the transient use, to the people who are here on a vacation that are coming to Grand Haven to stay in Grand Haven. We're not saying that a seasonal slip might not come and shop downtown. It might be a local person, but they're not doing it every weekend like a transient person would. So we see value to continuing the transient slip mix that we have now and making sure that we can continue to have that positive impact on our businesses in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Who's next? Would anyone else like to address council in our first call to the audience? If not, we will have a second call to the audience at the end of the meeting, but it'll be after we're done with all our business. Okay, if no one's coming forward, then we're going to close this call to the audience. We will continue with our work session. So, Shar, would you like to come back to the podium? And I believe, Mr. Dora, we're ready for your thoughts.
I don't know how you guys with glasses do it. I really don't.
The challenge.
First, Shar, thanks for the presentation. Board members for all the effort that you put into this as well. I think it's great to see a plan coming out of this where we can actually move forward with a new vision and breathe some fresh air into what we have going on over at the community center now and whatever we happen to rebrand it as. It's also nice to see that we were looking at some collaboration with some various vendors for wedding venues and other things to maybe help increase usage as well. The metrics with the customer service surveys and satisfaction surveys, those are always great opportunities for us to find a way that we can always make it a little bit better to meet the people's needs who are renting the facility. The rate increases, as everyone else has said, we have to kind of watch that and be a little careful, but being in the same ballpark as everyone else is not a crime. So I look forward to seeing those as well. Some of the steps that you look like you're taking to reduce dependency on the general fund is also welcome news for me. So I think promoting the available use and a lot of the other things that you presented are all excellent ideas. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And I'd like to echo a lot of what the other council members have said, and I appreciate the work of your team and their creative thinking and the good attention to an issue which has been here for as long as we've had a community center. It's always been a challenge to keep it fully occupied, keep it generating income, paying its own bills. And as Mr. Fritz said, it's kind of an amenity to the public, so we're not surprised that it doesn't make money. We just like it to cover its costs as well. But a lot of what you've talked about, particularly the marketing and the outreach, the attempt to more actively communicate what we've got and what you can do with it, and being flexible about how people can use the space and what it might cost. Those are all good things to do, and I'm sure that there's lots of good models you can emulate as far as how to market. It's a beautiful space. The building has been renovated. It's very nice. I'm certain everything can be made a little more polished and a little bit better, but it's really pretty good shape for what it is. And we've just finished the renovation with the outdoor space on the Columbus Street side. So there's a lot to it. There's a lot of draw there. We just have to get that word out, make sure that people know what we've got. Appreciate the attention to metrics, as Mr. Dora said. If you don't measure what you've got, you don't know what you're doing. Rates, if there's room to move on rates, then I think the marketplace has a lot to say about whether you've gone too far. We've worried in the past about how we compete with the private sector, and that's certainly a consideration. We also have a community center that we need to support, and we prefer it not be a great burden on the taxpayers. So I think you're going in the right direction here. I understand the past year with the community center being completely shut down, I had no opportunity to generate revenue. Prior to that, as you're showing your chart, it's always been a shortfall. It's always been something that needed a little bit more active work, and I think you've got the right ideas now. So let's go forward with that. Maybe you can supply us with a little bit better idea of the history of how it's been occupied over the years, how much of the time you've had events in there, how much of the time it's been waiting for someone to rent the place, and maybe that will help us to understand who it appeals to, when it appeals to them. As you said, it's busier on weekends than during the week. Pretty much any time during the weekday you can walk in there and there's nothing happening, and maybe that's not an opportune time. But certainly I think you can do a better job of marketing it throughout the week and throughout the seasons. As I say, it's a gorgeous facility. The people should be proud of what we've got, and we just need to make sure that it's being utilized to its greatest. So thank you for all the ideas, all the work you've done, and all the work you're going to be doing. So appreciate that. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to ask of us?
No, I think I feel good. Does our board feel good with our direction? I think, I really do believe in the plan that we've presented to you. I couldn't stand before you today and not be committed to what it is we're thinking that we can accomplish. And I really do think with the new board members and the long-term board members that have invested so much already and seen things come to fruition, I think we'll be able to see great things. It is a great facility, and we do have untapped potential in this community to work with other partners in all kinds of things. Ryan, as you pointed out with the arts and what was presented to you in your packet, there are so many arts opportunities that we just have not capitalized on. We work in silos in the arts industry in this region, and we have an opportunity, I think, to bring that sort of thing together into the community center and bring it back to what it was when it was envisioned by the persons that started it. So it's exciting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from council, or Pat, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Okay, well, thank you for your presentation. So the other half of our work session that we haven't gotten to yet is an update on the Affordable Housing Task Force. So Rhonda?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm Rhonda Klein, the Neighborhood Housing Services Department. And as you said, I'm going to give you sort of an annual report on where the task force recommendations stand. In 2018, City Council directed the city to appoint an Affordable Housing Task Force, which it did. That task force was made up of community members, staff members, and city council members. The task force they sort of, not created, but they sort of just latched onto certain ideals related to housing in Grand Haven. One being that everyone who works in Grand Haven should be able to live in Grand Haven, that Grand Haven needs a variety of housing options, and number 3, that people should be able to remain in Grand Haven as they age. So as we kept those ideals in mind through the 8 or 9 months that the task force worked, using those ideals as sort of a benchmark, the task force came up with 10 recommendations, and then when those recommendations were presented to City Council then adopted those recommendations. Since that time, myself, as the Housing Department Director, along with lots of other staff members, have worked on those recommendations, and so I'll kind of give you just a report on each, remind you what the recommendation was, tell you some results, and what our next steps are going to be. So the first task force recommendation was for staff to utilize financial tools for development projects. The most exciting one, of course, is Robinson Landing. Robinson Landing was able to utilize their brownfield TIF. We created the Grand Haven Area Community Land Trust, and the city approved reduced tap fee costs to support the affordability of those houses out there at Robinson Landing. Currently, there are 2 other projects that are in pre-development talks that are hopefully going to have some other exciting affordability components. And our next steps are basically we're going to just continue conversations to support the 2 other projects, and we're going to work very diligently to come up with funding sources for the CLT so that the CLT can expand not just in Grand Haven but throughout the Tri-Cities. The second recommendation was to identify viable development sites, collect owner information, establish dialogue, etc. The number one thing that we did immediately after these recommendations were adopted is Jennifer Holland and myself sat down and identified potential development sites in the city, and Robinson Landing came out of that conversation. As a staff this past year, I worked with other city staff members and Josh Morgan from the county. We identified what we would consider potential buildable sites, and we kind of have a list of our top 10 favorite sites that we're going to work on pursuing in different ways. So as I said, next step, we're going to begin talks with the property owners, and through the CLT, I am going to seek to identify funding sources that's going to support its growth. The third one was support higher density in select districts. The zoning ordinance changes that were made do support this, and staff's just going to continue to speak out in favor of those changes. The next two kind of go hand in hand, establishing a public acquisition fund and a private assistance fund. The Grand Haven Area Community Foundation has indicated that it has support for this and working with us in this. And so, you know, the next steps are we're just gonna continue to pursue it, and and get the funds up and created as soon as absolutely possible. Next one is regional support, that staff continues to work on pursuing regional support to work on housing affordability. We're going to share the plan and action steps with our neighbors and pursue a regional housing authority. Immediately after these recommendations were adopted, Pat and I went to all of our neighbors and we did present the task force report and the recommendations. I continue to report annually to all the neighboring municipalities. Most recently, I went in the spring and summer of 2021. In 2018, my department, we added Muskegon County to our housing counseling services. Up until that time, we only served Ottawa County residents. And so for housing counseling services, because Muskegon County lost their counseling office, so residents of Muskegon County didn't have a local place to go. So we added Muskegon County to our service area. Since we did that in 2018, our counseling services between Muskegon and Ottawa County are basically equal at this point now. We serve pretty much the same amount of Muskegon County residents as we do Ottawa County residents. So what I'm doing at this point is I'm currently talking to Muskegon County entities to talk to them about funding support for my department. And then one other thing that I did since this report came out is I created we call ourselves the Northern Ottawa Housing Team, and we're made up of just leaders from local housing agencies around the area, Salvation Army, People Center Love. And our purpose is to advocate for, create, and communicate about affordable housing in the community. We got slowed down a little bit in 2020, of course, just like the rest of the world, but we're back on track now. So, and my goal is to have secured some sort of funding support from Muskegon County by the end of 2021. The next one is coordinate location of higher density development with transit modes. Basically, we don't have progress to report in this area at this time. What Jennifer, her update for this area was, that this is a consideration of staff with each development. The lack of public transportation at this point connecting to neighboring counties, Muskegon, Kent, continues to be a roadblock. So I'm not sure if that roadblock was an intentional or an unintentional pun, but there you go. And then before I go on to the number 8, I want to go back because I meant to pause at number 2 to talk a little bit and give you just a brief update about the Grand Haven Area Community Land Trust. The project is going really, really well. The houses, I just got pictures last week of where the houses are. The phase 1, first 15 houses are being built. The contractor reports that they are still on schedule. And the progress is going to be, the plan is that starting in January, there should be about 3 houses complete and move-in ready each month in 2022. And then phase 2 will open hopefully immediately after the phase 1 houses are complete. So currently, 3 of the market rate homes are under contract, and all 8 of the phase 1 CLT homes are under contract, meaning that people have signed purchase agreements for them. My department, because the housing department, we're doing all of the counseling requirements for the CLT homeowners. And in September, we put a pause on it at the end of May because we got so many inquiries immediately once phase 1 opened. We had to put a pause on it. But in September, once things had leveled out a little bit and we had a good handle and the first 8 purchase agreements were signed, we opened it up for people who are interested in phase 2 houses to come in and continue to work through the housing counseling steps. There's a number of steps that they have to go through with our department before we say that they are ready, approved, to sign a purchase agreement. So we have about 30-ish or so active clients right now that are at some level in that housing counseling process, and we have, with some of those are actually ready to sign a purchase agreement. They're just waiting for the indication that phase 2 is open and they can contact the realtor. So that's kind of the update there. Another thing that we did in July and August is, to date right now, we have about 220 people who've contacted us wanting to purchase one of these 16 CLT homes. It's a lot of clients to manage, a lot of people to work through, a lot of people to keep happy. But my staff has done a really, really good job with that. But what we decided was we wanted to find out some information about these people who were submitting the online forms and saying they wanted to buy one of these houses. So we sent out a survey. We had about a 25, 30-ish% response to that survey. And so some of the most interesting data points was, of those who responded, 46% of those people are currently Grand Haven residents. They have a 49417 zip code already. 74% of the people are Ottawa County residents. 48% of the people who contacted us for a CLT home, they currently rent and they want to own something that's more affordable. 67% indicated that they think that the most urgent housing need in Grand Haven is single-family homes. And the last data point that I'll share is that 46% of those people that are looking for affordable home ownership in the city of Grand Haven are college graduates with at least a bachelor's degree or more. So number 8 on the task force recommendations was a zoning rewrite, a zoning ordinance rewrite. The zoning ordinance rewrite is complete. And that'll be the last one that I talk about tonight. The last 2 are simply dates. We just gave you some updates when you can expect to hear from me again. And we sort of neglected in 19 and 20 to give you an annual report, but we put some dates there, so we're committed to making sure that you get more regular updates from the work of the task force, because staff does continue to work on these recommendations all the time. So the zoning ordinance rewrite, again, going back to the reason, that was a recommendation of this task force that was, the city council directed staff to create a task force and to look into affordable housing in Grand Haven. Some of the progress that was made with that zoning rewrite is currently in jeopardy of being walked back. And I just wanted to, point out that there was a lot of effort put into that zoning rewrite, a lot of effort and a lot of time. The proposals were really well thought out. The group worked with Williams & Works, an outside vendor. We conducted public forums, we mostly Jennifer Howland, et cetera, to gain public feedback for that. And overall, the zoning ordinance rewrite supported the ideals that this task force put out, that if those who live in Grand Haven or work in Grand Haven should be able to live here, that Grand Haven needs a variety of housing options, and that residents should be able to stay as they age. I think that the CLT data that I showed tonight supports that these ideals are relevant and true to the needs of Grand Haven. As I mentioned, 46% of those who have applied for a CLT home are already 49417 residents. Of the people who have signed purchase agreements, we have senior citizens who are looking to remain here as they age. We have people who work here and need more affordable housing. We have a person who literally, her Grand Haven job wasn't paying her enough to live here, so she was going to have to move, which meant she was going to have to leave her job here to go work somewhere else so she could afford to live close to where she works. So, and I think these ideals, they came from what we know about Grand Haven and its residents. We all kind of know that the standard rule of thumb is that a household shouldn't spend more than 30% of its income on housing. If we can support households with more affordable housing, we are supporting sustainability for our residents. Households will have more discretionary income to spend in other areas, including saving for home repairs. And I think the zoning ordinance rewrite, you know, it was a directive from council and it sent a message that the city council supports a variety of housing options in Grand Haven. And I think it was good progress. And I think even making any small changes to that at this point, it just shows that there is the possibility to incrementally walk back a lot of that progress. And I think that is more of a negative message. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Rhonda. You have questions or comments for Rhonda?
Ron, I can attest to the little statement you said just now about people looking for places to stay and they can't stay because they can't afford it. It happened in my neighborhood. I had some renters that were just stable rentals for like 14 years, and all of a sudden they decided they want to turn it into a seasonal rental. And so they moved them out, and I, talking with them, the one gal herself that was living there told me, she says, I'm going to have to quit my job because I can't find affordable housing in Grand Haven. She looked all over compared to what she was paying the rent she was paying to try and move into something. The job that she had couldn't support for her. She looked all over, and there was just no way possible.
Right.
And also my neighbor across the street, she's living at, was it Hope's Place, is it there? I think it is right now.
Oh.
She's looking for rental, and she's got just a small social security check and that, but she wants to be in Grand Haven. She's born, loves this place,
Yep.
but it's very hard. So I have to agree with a lot of things you have said. We need to look at it, but also bringing back what was brought up for one of our people that spoke here, is talking about in the big neighborhood, how do you get affordable? They split it down to $300,000 to $400,000 just for a lot. You know what I mean? They split a lot. That's not affordable. By the time you build a home, it's not going to be affordable. Some locations we have to be very discreet on where we're going to do this and how we do it. In some neighborhoods, it's just not going to work because our tax base is, so high there in some places. So, thank you for your report. I appreciate it very much, and I attest. I know we're having a hard time. I've seen it firsthand. So, thank you.
Anyone else?
Go ahead. Yeah, thank you for the report, Rhonda. And, affordable housing in Grand Haven, we talk about it a lot, we hear about it a lot, but, quite honestly, when you look around Grand Haven, there isn't a lot of area left where we can just put up affordable housing. We happen to have a lot out, by the hospital, or the hospital, out by the airport that we owned, that worked out excellent, for Robinson Landing. And I wish we had a dozen more places we could do that with. But the truth of the matter is we do not. And at some point in time, I was on the Affordable Housing Task Force. We had to sit back and listen to what some of the residents are saying about density and building up, 5 stories and being careful what we do. I mean, it's nice to build affordable housing for people who want to live here, but you can't do it at the expense of the people who are already living here. So I support things like at Robinson Landing, and I wish, like I said, we had a bunch of other places to do it as well. But currently we don't, and unless we can come up with some places to do it and get support of the residents who live here on some of these zoning changes, I think it's going to be tough to crack.
Yes, thank you, Rhonda. I think you did a very good job, presenting this, and I don't know if it ever hurts to bring back Mr. Kilpatrick to do one of his good presentations on affordable housing, because it's not just about building affordable housing. It's about, and he'll tell you that you need housing at all price points to make this work, right? You need them at all income levels.
I think
Okay?
it's like
Because-
15,000 units in Grand Haven, in
Right.
Iowa County, yeah.
Right, Because some of those folks who maybe are ready for that next level of housing, that maybe have the more affordable home, they can move on to that next level that they're looking for in the community. They open up that home that may be more affordable for the next person in line and so on. And so when I'm a little passionate about this. So, I truly believe at today's prices, and when I look around and I look on a regular basis to kind of see where things are at, I couldn't afford to live here today. I'm a government worker for the city of Muskegon full-time. So when we're talking about folks, being able to live in the community that they serve, we're talking about our own city hall employees, our DPW workers who are working on our sewers and our water lines. We're talking about our police officers, our teachers. You mentioned, folks with a bachelor's degree, and our teachers, our police officers, our firefighters. We're not talking about subsidized housing here. We're talking about folks who are working folks doing exactly what society expects of them, being able to live in the community that they serve. And I myself was very lucky, 6 years ago, to move into the city of Grand Haven. It was because there was a multi-family condo available for me to buy. And I live we have multifamily housing, intermixed with the single-family neighborhood, and I don't think that we've lost our neighborhood because there's multifamily housing or there's condos in the neighborhood. We need a variety of housing types, and Ryan would tell you that too, right? I believe a lot, what he says. And so, when we talk about losing our neighborhoods, we're losing neighborhoods that have families and children and kids that are going to school. We're losing the number of housing units we have from some of the short-term rentals that we have in our community. We need the right balance. Mike's exactly right, though. When we give these units away for short-term rentals, we lose housing options for folks in our communities. We have seniors who are ready to leave their larger home, and they want to stay in the community, and they don't have the next level of home to go to. They don't have somewhere to go that's smaller, that they can maintain, that it's more accessible for them. So this community, and those of you that have lived here your whole lives, it's become more dense over time. Where are our property values at? We're not hurting our community and taking away all this, people are concerned about their property values in their neighborhoods. That's a lot of it, right? It's human nature. We're thinking, I want to protect what I have here. We're not looking at getting rid of your property values. In fact, this town has done really well, right? We're being compared to Cape Cod and Virginia Beach and San Diego as a top 10 USA Today destination. So these two-family dwellings, I hear some criticism on those. It doesn't need to look cookie cutter. We can make really good-looking two-family homes, and that's an option for families to actually create wealth. If somebody can move into one side and rent out the other side, you got a good landlord on site, somebody who cares about the property because they live next door, that can be a wealth creation option for folks. So I think a lot of the zoning changes that we made were good. Do we need to maybe be more prescriptive in certain areas and take a look at lot splits where they are and aren't appropriate? I'm fine with doing that. No matter what you set it at, there's going to be some lot that you can probably split up in some way. And we're never going to stop all of the lot splits, And when we look at, some folks would say, well, just go build out, in the township. There's land out there. Well, we can't afford the sprawl as a community. We've seen that. We've seen this experience of all this sprawl and going out into the rural areas to build suburbs. Well, it's expensive to put that infrastructure in the ground and build those roads. We're seeing that right now with the Robinson Landing project that you're working on. How expensive it is to put that new infrastructure in the ground. So I'm happy with a lot of the zoning changes that we made. Fine with reviewing them and being more prescriptive. We got to find the right balance, but I'm going to defend, I think, a lot of the work that we've done, especially the part where we said, hey, we're okay with smaller units being built, less square foot. Footage. We don't need 1,000 square foot to be built. Somebody's fine with 600 or 700 square foot. That's the easiest way to get, make something more affordable right off the bat. So, thank you for your work that you do. Thank you for listening to my long rant here. But I support your work. I will reaffirm this plan. I think what everybody came up with a few years ago was good. I think the work we've done is good, but we got to continue it.
Thanks, Ryan.
Okay. I was on that task force also, and there were some suggestions that went on, and we've done some of those. But I want to say that I'm not for making Grand Haven more dense either. I have a daughter that lives in Grand Haven. That probably bought a house here less than 10 years ago, and I have 2 grandchildren that bought houses here. And they're not rich. They don't have great huge jobs either, but they've afforded to live in Grand Haven, and they've found houses here. So I have a daughter and 2 grandchildren that live here, and that was just recently. So I think probably Kaylee 5-6 years ago, and my other granddaughter a couple of years ago, and then Jody probably less than 10 years ago. But and I'm just not I'm just, you know, I'm just not for making Grand Haven any more dense than it is right now. I think it's time to reevaluate what we're doing. If we can find some vacant land someplace or something, that's one thing. But to make Grand Haven denser than it is right now, I don't want to do that. I think Grand Haven's a unique little community. Community of class, community that I grew up in, and I don't want to see it. I just don't want to see it any more dense than it is right now. And I think that that would destroy the nature of Grand Haven. So I'm not in favor of doing that at all.
Thanks, Danny. Rhonda, I want to say how much I appreciate your commitment to this. That housing is truly your passion, and I think you've recognized and you've articulated how serious a problem this is. Many of us either don't see it or don't think it's as bad as it is, but when you talk about 220 people wanting 16 houses, I think that ought to tell us a whole lot right there. Tremendous demand, tremendous desire. People want to have a place of their own that they can live, that they can build some wealth, and there's just not a lot of opportunities for that. Housing in Grand Haven is expensive. We know that. We just talked about that. That was the beginnings of the affordable housing discussion, was that what can we do? Is there things that we can do to help? You know, and this is, as Ryan said, this is it's a stressful thing for ordinary people. It's not just for people at the bottom of the income scale. It's for all levels of our city, every income level, every cultural level. All of us have been in this boat. I've been in my house since 1979. I paid $30,000 for it. At the time, it was all I could afford, but you know, that same house now would obviously go for more if I were to sell it and move on. Things have changed a lot over the years. So I think that it's important that we continue to do this work. And it's not we're probably not going to get there in a straight line. It's a complex problem. Many facets to it. Every time you do one thing, then it's going to have an implication somewhere else. And so you probably take a step here, a step there, and maybe a step back once in a while, but we've got to keep at this and keep moving forward and keep making the progress that we can make and make things as good for our people as we can. You know, I would point out when you talk about the density of the town, the population of Grand Haven peaked in 1990, and just under 12,000 people. And it reached its a low end in the 2010 census at about 10,500, and we're on our way back up now. So there's fewer people in town now than there were in 1990. Now some of that may be kids who were living at home and grew up and moved away. That may be, I'm not sure that there's more households or more homes or fewer homes, but there's fewer people here. So I think that there's things that we can do for the people who do want to be here, people who want to work here, live here, make this their home, whether they were born here or came here because it's such a great place. There's things we can do to make that problem better. I want to continue to pursue those solutions. And whether we've got all those solutions just right now, well, okay, we're working on it. We're trying, we're making efforts. We're willing to be flexible enough that when we run into a problem, we're willing to take a step back and say, well, how else can we solve this problem? We've come with, you know, the Grand Lane, or the, not Grand Lane, the Robinson Landing project is a great answer, but it's very limited in its reach. But it's the right sort of thing for a certain application. Having more housing options throughout town at all different levels is another approach. And I'm sure that there's more that will come up. We just have to be creative, and we have to keep our eyes and ears open. We have to have the buy-in of the community that living here is important, and it's important to all of us. And I think that the stuff you're doing, the stuff you're working on, the housing assistance and advice, everything you're doing is extremely valuable to this community. I really appreciate what you're doing, and your commitment to all this. So thank you for that. Thank you for your report. Thank you for the progress we've made and the progress we'll make in the future, and the various steps and facets and all the solutions that we're going to come up with, the ones that stick, the ones that have to be modified. All those things are part of this, and it's just so important that we not lose sight of what we're trying to accomplish. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone? Okay. Well, that concludes our work session. So we will move on now to the consent agenda. Linda, would you read the consent agenda?
This is to approve the minutes of the special work sessions and regular council meeting of October 4th, 2021. Approve the bills memo in the amount of $1,469,381.25. Recognize WGHN for preserving the Central Park Tuesday concert series. And approve marina transient rates at level E for Sunday through Thursday, level G for Saturday and Sunday, and rate 1 for seasonal slips.
Can I have a motion?
So moved?
Support?
Motion by Fritz, second by Scott. Questions on any item on the consent agenda? Hearing none, are we ready to vote?
Cummins,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Fritz,
Yes.
Dora,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes. So at this point, we will open a public hearing. This is the public hearing for the, we need to amend the brownfield plan that we adopted recently for Robinson Landing. The brownfield plan contained various eligible expenses. As has been mentioned previously, the expense for the hookup to the utilities had to be rerouted and became more expensive, and that caused us to need to revise this plan because the eligible expenses increased. So at this point, I will open the public hearing. I would note also that the Brownfield EDC Board has also recommended approval of this modification. So with anybody from the public here to address council on this item? Seeing none, if there's no one who would like to address us on the public hearing for the Brownfield Amendment, I will close the public hearing. And we'll move on to our next item. Linda, would you read that?
Next item is to approve the adoption of amended brownfield plan for Robinson Landing Development Project located on Comstock Street that would increase the plan duration by 1 year and developer reimbursement by 3 years. The Brownfield EDC boards and the administration recommend approval.
Can I have a motion?
So moved?
Motion by Fritz.
Second.
Second by Cummins. Questions on the motion? Or is everyone clear what we're doing here?
Clear.
Okay, I think we're ready to.
Well, I just had a question on,
Oh, go for it.
some of the changes here. Just kind of, I thought it was interesting that the simple interest went up so much. It didn't seem as proportional to, the extra costs that were kind of being added on. I mean, I would understand if they had extra borrowing costs for those portions, but, I mean,
I'm Eric Keogh from Michigan Community Capital. So, could you repeat the questions so I know?
yeah, so, your site preparation went up $153,000, and the infrastructure improvements went up $149,000, so about $300,000. But the simple interest that you're asking for went up by $161,000. And so I'm just wondering why there's so much more simple interest being requested now. It seems like a lot more based on the extra that you're asking for.
Right.
For the other items.
Yeah, I'll have to confirm why that simple interest went up. So,
Okay.
yeah. Off the top of my head, I'm not exactly sure what the difference would have been between that and the previous brownfield plan. So,
I'm not sure if Amy, our finance director's behind. I don't know if she maybe has or Pat has a thought on that.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Amy Bessinger, Finance Director, Treasurer for the city.
Ryan, I apologize, I don't know the exact answer to that calculation. That does come from the developer and their environmental plan. It does show the increase, I agree, and I think it's just carrying it out and adding those extra years to the developer reimbursement, that it's carried out even longer would be my quick answer, but I can follow up with the developer and their team to figure out if I can get a copy of that calculation.
Yeah, we can flesh that out pretty good for you. I do think it is because you add this $300,000 on this front end, and this is 28 years of interest on that. So that's why that interest number gets so high. If you add the additional cost on right now, it just adds onto that total reimbursement over that 28 years now. And then, the contingency offsets it. We just reduce the contingency because it doesn't look like we're gonna need that because we're getting everything taken care of here. But we can get those calculations out to you guys first thing tomorrow just to make sure we're being accurate there. But I'm quite sure that that number is accurate.
Yeah, it's a long time to pay it back at that rate, so.
And this is the interest is an eligible expense and it's kind of projected out, and so this is more of an estimate than a hard number.
It is going to be 5% until it's paid off.
Okay, but for example, Peerless Flats, they pulled in in that case, they were able to pull in their length of time on the brownfield plan. If this were to all change in some manner, it might be a different number.
Correct, yes. And the number of years it might go out, this is worst case scenario, it could be shorter than that.
Okay, so this is a worst case.
Yes. And it's good to keep in mind, and I'm very grateful to City Council and the Brownfield Authority and the county land bank and the state of Michigan that have shepherded this through, because for the last 30 years, that property sat there with zero tax revenue. So, there's nothing there now, and there wouldn't be anything there if not for the investment that's being made in affordable housing. So I think it's, that's the way the Brownfield Authority looked at it and talked about it and said, well, it's going to house people and be a productive piece of property, and in 28 years, it'll be fully taxable, filled with residents. Or sooner.
Ryan, did you have something else?
Nope.
If I could just get Eric's last name. Eric jumped up and I didn't quite catch his last name.
Yeah, it's Eric Kehoe.
Kehoe?
Yeah, Kehoe. Yeah.
Just like it sounds, okay.
Anyone else? Questions? Amy, did you have any other comment you'd like to make on this?
Thank you. I think you covered it very well. It is an extension of the plan. The amendment was due to infrastructure. The hope was to go north to hook to that connection. And unfortunately, we weren't able to make that happen with the neighboring properties without a significant delay in the timeline and some costs. So to keep in the time frame with the construction and to get everybody in those homes, they did this plan amendment to hook the connection to the south, which required the increase. So it does add on, the plan increased by 1 year. It's a 30-year max with brownfield, so that's why it's a 1-year increase for the plan. But the developer reimbursement does increase by 3 years, which lessens our option for the local brownfield revolving fund if we choose to take that down to 3 years. So those were just the plan changes there.
Okay, thanks. There are no other questions. I believe we're ready to vote.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Dora?
Yes.
Cummins?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes. All right, first item of new business.
First item of the new business is to appoint Kelly Beatty to the position of city clerk pursuant to section 7.2A of the Grand Haven City Charter. The administration recommends approval.
We'd like to make the motion.
So moved.
Second. Ryan, second.
Okay, motion by Cummins, second by Dora.
There you go.
Yeah, I think it was pretty close to equal, but this year is better than that one, so you get it. Any questions on the motion?
Thought that felt weird for our city clerk to read that.
It does feel weird to say it.
Reading the replacement in, right?
It's been a while since we've done this.
Yeah.
If there's no questions, I would welcome a vote.
Fritz?
Yes.
Dora?
Yes.
Cummins?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes, congratulations.
And
And welcome.
can swear him in.
So let's do that.
There you go.
Who is?
Oh, man.
Oh.
And how we do this, we normally just, just the oath and we just say, I do want to go. So. I, Kelly M. Beatty, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of city clerk effective November 22nd, 2021, in and for the city of Grand Haven, county of Ottawa, and state of Michigan, according to the best of my ability.
I do.
And then I just need your signature right there. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome aboard, Kelly.
It's gonna be a lot of years before we do this again.
39 more.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item.
Next item is to add 5 additional seasonal slips to the Grand Haven Municipal Marina slip mix for the 2022 season. Main Street recommends denial.
Okay, I need a motion.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Dora, second by Cummins. We talked about this a little bit. Pat or Shar, who would like to talk about this?
I think Shar can do a good job.
Shar Sese, Community Affairs Manager for the city. In 2020, when I came forward to City Council the first time to ask about seasonal slips, it was a result, again, of a budget deficit. And at that time, it was my understanding that the City Council wanted us to go for the full amount that would be allowable from the DNR. And at that point, it would be to bring our seasonal slips, commercial slips, up to 50% of our transient slips. Many marinas operate this way. Again, it's a way of diversifying funding. And I can understand where the DDA is coming from, needing to keep that diversity of funding stream for themselves as well. And I really believe that our recommendation to add 5 additional slips will bring revenue to the marina that is positive. We had an exceptional boating year this year, and the weather was wonderful, and we had a lot of activities with the stadium, having events and whatnot down there. We are full most weekends, but the weekdays we are not. It is increasing. You can see the numbers that are here in the memo that I gave you, that our numbers went up exponentially this season, and I do really believe that it is a result of the weather conditions that we had. A lot of people are also doing more recreational activities for their vacations, so you're seeing a lot more families gathering down at our marina and that sort of thing. And with our seasonal slip persons, we really do have a lot of activity down there. They're inviting their families and friends down to come and visit, and I can honestly say that there isn't anyone using the grills that are down there for those boaters. They're participating in the activities that are happening in the downtown area. So it is really, it's a 50-50 split. We can add those 5 additional seasonal slips. I have now 25 people on the waiting list, and I do believe that we would fill them all. And last year we started a little late in the season, so we didn't get all 5 slips filled, but we did use that 1 slip as a transient slip throughout the season. So it has been beneficial. I do believe having those boaters down there during the week does help bring and attract other boaters to come midweek. So it is my recommendation that we add those 5 additional slips. The beautiful part about it is we can, in this particular situation, the DNR has said that they would like us to try 5 more for 1 more year. And at any time we decide that we don't want to do this anymore, we don't have to do it anymore. So it is really just asking the DNR for permission on how we run our business. we get their blessing on how we do it, and if we want to make changes in the future, it's at our disposal to do that.
Okay, thanks, Shar.
Mhm.
All right, questions, comments?
Thanks for the information. And when I dug into this back in 2020 with the information we had available then, at that point in time, we could have done up all 14 slips as seasonal slips, and it would have had zero impact on availability of transient slips. We would have always had a slip available for transient use. Now, this was not this past summer, it was the summer before, because I haven't seen information for the past summer yet. Still waiting for it, but when it comes up, I'll look at that as well. But based upon the information in 2020, we very well could have went to 14 and had zero impact. So we would have had empty slips sitting there, waiting for people to come in and take them. An empty slip makes no revenue for anybody downtown or anywhere else. You might as well take it, give it to somebody who's gonna be there. They're gonna be there all week on their boat, every night with their friends, watching the fountain, going downtown to restaurants, doing many things that are available to do downtown. So I agree with you. I think we should, move ahead with it. We don't have to do it next year. If it proves to be detrimental, we can look at the information and see what we want to do. But I think for the first year, we should give it a shot. We'll go for 10, see how it works. Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Thanks, Mike. Anyone else?
I agree. It's all about finding the right mix. And we're seeing, even if those slips have been 100% filled from a transient side of things, we saw 50% more in revenue on those, each individual slip that we filled. So there's $20,000 more for those 4 slips. And finding that right mix for the taxpayers, and then also wanting to find the right mix to support our downtown merchants. But I agree. I think like you said, folks they're coming to their boat, but they're also bringing guests a lot of times and inviting friends out that also support the downtown. So it's again, it's that right mix, and we have their seawall still available. We still have plenty of other slips available for transient boaters. It's not that we're just completely knocking out all transient boaters, and that we're not welcoming to a transient boating community. I think we need, again, just that right mix. So I think this takes a step towards that right mix and making the marina more financially viable, and also still supporting our downtown businesses, and we'll just have to keep an eye on it. So.
Good. Thanks, Ryan. Anyone else?
Yeah, I agree that I think we need to do this. I think this makes the marina more viable, and like you said, Char, when the weather's nice, they come. But if the weather's not nice, they don't. We don't have no guarantees what the weather's going to be, and we don't have any guarantees what the fuel prices are going to be later on either. So, and this kind of gives us some guaranteed income that we know we're going to get for the whole year. So I think this is a good thing for the marina.
You really do, huh?
I do.
Seeing it's only for like 1 year to try out again for the DNR, we're not quite sure what it is. I'd like to see the numbers from the DDA on what the effects might be next year if we do this and when it moves forward, compared to last year or this year to next year, whatever it goes on, to see what the numbers are. Because you're actually, Ryan, you brought in the seawall. That brought in what, $7,500 or something like that to us this year.
Brought in some nice revenue.
So I tell you, that was a good acquisition, good thing for us to do. I remember when Mayor Bergman and I rallied to charge for the seawall many years ago, saying, it's like a parking meter or whatever. They come in, you make them pay, I'm glad to see we finally initiated it and moved it forward and actually did have some income coming in. I like to see that money go to our marina fund. That's where it should be going, but I think we're going to be putting that someplace else. But I'd like to see that go there to help support the marina, because that's what part of it is. I mean, those guys, I really feel sorry for some of those interns that work down there for us as summer help, have to put up with some of the vocals that goes on. But they did a good job. It made it very reasonable and made it possible for us to at least have some county income coming in. I'm willing to try this and see what we get. I know the list. I know a lot of people, a lot of friends of mine that have boats that would love to be down there. And they're on the list. And I just wondered, hopefully, that is it going to be a luck of the draw, or how are you going to do this? Because you got so many of them, and they just hope that their names get pulled.
Right.
And they spend a lot of time down there, and they don't bring food down to their boat. They go out to the restaurants. They spend their money out there. They go downtown and enjoy themselves. And we still have enough transients that come in, and that it's a win-win. I think right now we can see how it goes. But I'd like to see it for 1 year, like the DNR says they want to see how it works for 1 year too. If it helps our marina, since we took the boat launch away from it, makes it look a little more tougher for it to make money. So let's move forward with it and see how we do.
Okay, thanks, Mike. I guess, since I sit on the DDA board as well, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least acknowledge their point of view. Their point of view is that the transient slips translate into better sales for the downtown merchants, that they can, from conversations they have with their customers, they understand the difference between those who rent seasonally and those who are transients who are just dropping in for a day or two, and the draw that has. So I understand their argument. It also tends to perpetuate the drain on the general fund that the marina has been. Marina in a great year pays for itself, and then typical year it loses some money, and in a bad year it does worse. And unfortunately, we're finding ourselves in a position of comparing what we just did with transient to seasonal transition in a very strange year with COVID, with all the things that have been going on, and then the rebound we've had this past summer. It's a little hard to tell if we're really on a trend or not. So I think that I acknowledge what the DDA's position. I think it's valid. It's somewhat anecdotal. They have some numbers they can put together and talk about the true effect of this on businesses. It also represents something of a taxpayer subsidy if we're going to continue to run the marina at a disadvantage. So I'm in favor of converting more of these to seasonal for the simple fact that we'll probably generate more revenue. We'll probably have less effect on the income that we get from transients than might have been stated. And I think that if we try it and find out that bigger difference than we thought, we certainly have the option of going back to transient. If it turns out to have been a really important impact, I doubt if we'll ever really be able to measure that. What we can measure is what you've already seen, that each slip that goes from transient to seasonal generates about half again what it did as a transient in terms of rent. So I think that's important. So we're trying to lessen the burden on our taxpayers with some of the amenities that we offer without throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So I think that this is one of those incremental steps that we can take to try to make things better for all of us. So in that sense, that I'm supporting this change. I think the fact that it was only for 1 year is kind of a strange and unfortunate situation, because if you can only promise this for a year, I don't know how you get clientele built up for your seasonals. But
well, I think how we got to the point of getting it another opportunity is by having that waiting list, and that is one thing that the staff worked on this summer. And I do believe that as housing, the boating industry it's the same. We have a really high demand for this area in the summertime. It's a great place to be. So I think we'll have some good opportunities, and I think that looking at what the DDA concerns are, we have great opportunity as well to work together and partner together. What can we do to work with the restaurants and work with our not only just our seasonal boaters, but our transient boaters? So I feel like we have opportunity to talk about different things, maybe incentives that we can work on together.
Okay, that's a great way to work together and come up with a common solution. So I appreciate that. Okay, any other comments from anyone? Thank you. No further comments. I believe we are ready to vote.
Dora?
Yes.
Cummins?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes?
Fritz?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes. All right, that concludes our new business for the evening. So we are up to reports by city council. Who would like to go first?
I'll step up, I guess, and might just as well, right? First of all, I'd like to say what a success it was. I went to the Berserk of Oktoberfest, how you want to call it, Oktoberfest they had down there. And it was a very large turnout. I could not believe for a first-time event, I thought it went on very well managed. It was nice to see a lot of the community come down there. I ran into a lot of my old friends and stuff I haven't seen for a long time that came into town just for that. And also I got to see some of my friends that are here all the time. So I'm looking forward to another event down there in an off-season like that. I thought it was great. It showcased the east side of town. It was very good. That was phenomenal. The music was good. I got to see Dave Palmer's grandson come up there and slash the guitar up there, so that was pretty decent. He really did. He cut it pretty good. And then we did also Chow Down in Centertown. I was there 3 different times. I was down there first when they were setting up and got to see how it was going, and the fiasco, the mayor there holding the fort there, stopping people from going into the parking lot because they're trying to set up and people want to park their cars there. So, and then I went back and enjoyed some of the food and got to go around and meet some people. Then I got to go back with my grandson. I got to take care of him, so he got to go down to Chow Down. So he enjoyed it, and he ran into his cousins there. Funny day, his cousins were there with him, so that was really good too. And tonight we took a tour of the Odd Side Ales, and there's a success story. I remember when Chris first came here, he was looking for a place. He wanted to go into downtown here, and we had to sidestep some trying to work the zoning in there because he's going to do manufacturing in a building. He wasn't allowed for manufacturing, so we figured out a way of allowing him to do it, and he would make his own mash and stuff and cook his beer down there. And today we went out to see him at his facility, and holy schmoly, I mean, this guy is really expanded. I mean, he's in what, 12 or 13 different states. He's now trying to move into Florida. So it's good to see the progress of him starting here in Grand Haven and investing in here and staying here and just being a good resident and wanting to be here, and that's it. So kudos go out to him for what he's done so far. And also I'd like to report, I've been to the forum, listened to all these people talking about what dire straits Grand Haven's in. Oh boy, we're in just, dire straits. And from what I hear in the reports that we've been getting lately is that we're actually, you're talking about we're dipping into our funds. Oh boy, we're getting down there, the percentage is getting low. Well, the report is going to be anywhere between 25 and 30% on the plus side. We're going to be that much in our slush fund for it to do it. Lucky we have that extra cash. We went from $600,000 on a negative, where actually $400,000, so we gained $1 million, we came up on it. So I want to say thank you to staff and everybody and all of us being contemptuous on this and making it work. It's not true, we're not in dire straits, and we are very good in financial. They had auditors to come in and done a very good job so far, and just the preliminary reports is that we're going to have 30%, over 30% almost by the time we're done. So that means we're overfunded, as Denny would say, would be overfunded, and we need to do that money, and it's lucky we have that kind of money because then we get chances to go out for grants. That's how we've did all of our infrastructure grants, so we've been able to have that cash flow here to go out and just match it. We put $1 out there and get $3 back from them is absolutely fantastic. So I want to say thank you to staff and them and everybody working hard, our whole city staff, everybody in the city to work hard and making it that better for us. So you guys, people listening out there, it's not true. We are in good shape. I mean, I sit on the audit committee and that we're doing very well. So be careful when it comes voting. Be careful who you vote for. Make sure you get the facts and everything out there. Get it all.
Thanks, Mike. Who's next?
I'll go.
Okay.
Cody?
Cody.
Gotcha. I obviously don't know your whole story, and certainly hearing your perspective tonight, I just give you kudos for at least coming to a governmental meeting. We don't have a lot of say over in our courts, but you're raising awareness, and it takes a lot of time to sit through a meeting like this, and a lot of vulnerability to stand up and tell your story. So give you kudos for reaching out and standing up for what you believe in. So especially as a young person, I always see that amongst our young people. So attended the League of Women Voters Election Forum, and I watched back kind of an environmental forum that was available online because it was my birthday that day. So I had a chance to make it in person. As much as I would have loved to have been there with you guys in person, but obviously there's an election coming up. Folks, I hope they just do your research. There's some good. You can hear direct from the candidates. Those videos are out there. You can go to MLive, and the Muskegon Chronicle, and the Grand Haven Tribune. There's questionnaires that all the candidates have worked hard to fill out and give you their thoughts and put out there what they think on the issues. And so just educate yourselves and then make the best decision what you think is good for Grand Haven. So I encourage folks to do that. In fact, I think I just saw online there's like this brews or beers and ballots thing that's going to happen at the Armory too, to kind of get some younger people, I think, out to vote. Which the numbers for us young people voting in the city is kind of scary. We need to bump that up. So that's kind of neat to see an event like that's going to occur. And then yes, Mike, the Oddside Tour. I really appreciate John taking us through and getting us in there quickly. They were our 2020 Business Award recognition winner, but it was fascinating just to see. I mean, I never would have thought how many fermentation tanks they have in there and how many different brews they're working on, and just in really a relatively short period of time to see just a small town brewery opening up, taking a chance, and creating some odd brews to be in so many different states, and to have the production facility that they have also within the city is pretty darn cool and fascinating. I'm proud of that. So go Oddside. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Ryan. Okay, who's next?
Pour a pint.
No, not in this venue.
We did say that we could solve a lot of problems tonight if we were just to all pour beer and just we could hash out a lot of things, I'm sure, and just be all good to go.
I think they were willing to offer up the beer, too.
That's true.
I think you'd had to have enough to go around, though.
I attended the tour as well, and it was really great to see the stuff that they were doing and all the different brews that they were making, so that was great. Attended several boards and commission meetings, as well as the chow down in Centertown. A great event. Lots of people enjoying the crafts, the food, the music. I was only there twice, lunch and dinner. I didn't make breakfast, so I can't say 3 times. But no, it was a great opportunity for folks to get together in the community and just enjoy a great local event. I'd like to touch on the general fund a little bit that you brought up, because I've been receiving a lot of emails regarding the general fund balance, and would like to clarify some of the information that was presented by Pat on 9/24 under end of the year numbers, where you indicate a worst case scenario of ending the 2020-2021 budget year with a general fund balance of 29%, or approximately $4,050,000, and the recent revenue and expenditure report indicating a best case general fund balance of 31.8% and approximately $4,423,000. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And being this information comes from a public document, is it available for the general public to view? And how would someone go about getting a copy of the information should they wish to view it?
They could just contact myself or Finance Director Amy Bessinger. It's a spreadsheet that we'd be happy to share.
So it is available for anybody who wants to look at it and see, and the numbers are right there in black and white, and it is what it is.
Yeah, they're the unaudited end of year figures, so the auditors are going over that. So typically that doesn't really get presented until audit time. But we're happy to share what the book said at the end of June. Sure.
Great. And again, I want to thank staff and everybody involved for the hard work they put into making that happen as well. Thanks. That's all I have.
That's all you got? Okay.
Yeah.
Hey?
All right. I want to echo that the fund balance is not as bad as what it was portrayed to be, and our city is definitely not going broke. I don't, there's issues in a campaign that people can, that they have a right to address, but, to address something that's not really broken is wrong, and I think that's what they did, and so anyways, our general fund balance is huge, still huge, and I think it's, in my opinion, like Mike said, that, I think it's overfunded, I don't think we need that kind of a fund balance. And, but, like it or not, we have it again, so if we got a lot of money in our fund balance, and our public improvement fund still has $1.7 million in that too, so, and that's even added to that, so, and again, this fund balance that we're talking about, this balance is what we're gonna have at the end of the fiscal year. It's not what we have right now. It's what we're going to have at the end. When all the bills are paid, at the end of the fiscal year, we're going to have that kind of money left in our funds. That's phenomenal. And to say Grand Haven is broke is crazy, And our pension system, yeah, we have a pension system that has a problem. There's no doubt about that. But we're working on it. We're doing what MERS tells us to do. And if we do what MERS, so if we put the money in MERS tells us to do, we'll get that fund down. And it's not... I'm a retiree that draws from that fund, and I'm not worried about getting the payment from it, because as long as the city pays what MERS tells them to pay, and the employees pay half of it, and that system is in great financial shape. It looks bad to look at, say we're 31%, or $31 million underfunded, which is true. It does look bad but the employees contribute half of that, and we contribute half of that, and MERS, if we stick to what MERS recommends that we pay every year, we'll be out of this thing. It's going to take a little time, but no employee is not going to have their pension, and no employee is not going to have the benefits that we promised them. So it just. To make accusations and try to make political points on stressing something that really isn't true is not. There's issues out there that they could. I mean, there's issues out there that we can that are true that they can address that we've done, and but to say that our finances, that's not one of them, and so I think that's. I just don't understand where that's coming from. I think this is a fight that that I don't think really has any value in it at all. And I just don't. I think our staff and our city manager have done a great job over all the years that I've been here, and I just don't see any problem with our finances.
Thank you, Danny. I appreciate the work that our finance director does. I think that they're very thorough, and they do a very good job. We have preliminary numbers from the closing of the books at the end of June. Our fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th of every year. And sometimes when we talk about when expenses come in, even when our goals are expected to be accomplished, a lot of it has to do with the timing of the fiscal year, because we're trying to tee those things up into our budget and such. And so sometimes there's a question of timing and how accurate or how present value numbers are, that sort of thing. And so needs a little bit of clarity, sometimes a little bit of careful, skeptical thought. But yeah, and we closed the books. Things look good closing the books, better than projected. When we set up our budget at the beginning of the year for the next year, we started in basically December with goals, and then we start with all the reviews and all the projections from our department heads and all of the various capital projects that we review and all those things that go into it. It's a very open process, and everybody is certainly welcome to come to our meetings. We have public hearings, truth and taxation hearings. I guess that's not really a thing now, but that's what they used to call it. And so, I mean, it's all a very open process, and we're always very much open to people saying, have you thought about this, or are you doing that when you shouldn't? And so we'd like to get that kind of input as we go. Once the budget is adopted, it's a very conservative budget usually. We tend to underestimate revenues, we tend to overestimate expenditures, just to make sure that as the year progresses, we always have the wherewithal to do the things we're supposed to do, provide the services to the people, take care of the projects, pay our bills, never be in default. We never have been. And so I think that's the conservative and prudent side of budgeting. And when it comes in better than that, it's not because we didn't know what we were doing, it's because we were deliberately pessimistic and we were glad to have things turn out better rather than worse. And so I think that's not a bad way to go. I'd certainly rather be surprised by having the funds turn out better than to have them find out, hey, we were short and couldn't pay our bills. And that has not happened. I think the last time we were even close to that was like 1992 or something. It's been a long time. We've been blessed by good management in the city. Appreciate all that. And I think the numbers are probably better than they might look at any one given point in time if you look at the whole picture. So enough on that. I wanted to talk about, appreciate the events we had, the October's Fest, which was a lot of fun, new event on the East End, kind of celebrating the first year of operation for Resort Brewing, new startup, bringing new life to our East End. Chowdown Centertown, celebrating Centertown in the autumn of the year when things are usually quiet and maybe a little bit looking for something to do. What a great event that was. And yeah, I was there trying to keep people from parking where they shouldn't because they didn't have enough volunteers. So I said, okay, I've got a few minutes here. But once they started filling in with all their vendors and got their tables set up, that problem went away. And the weather was about as good as you might expect for an October Saturday, middle of October. So it worked out really well. I didn't go home hungry. I don't think anybody did. If you did, that's your own fault. There's plenty there to eat. So it was a lot of fun. Went to the museum, the Haunted Museum. Great activities for kids. They really decorated the museum. Made it a lot of fun. That's a great, very committed staff there. Our museum is a real gem in this community. Appreciate when they reach out to the public and try to have special events there. I did get over to the Art at the Yard and look at some of the, it's just tremendous talent in this community. So many artists that present stuff that really kind of breathtaking. And so much of it is local people showing what they can do and raising money for the Schools Foundation, which was a great cause. Really enjoyed doing all that. A week ago, we had a beach safety meeting where we had we brought in people from South Haven and we had people participating by Zoom from Muskegon and from Ludington and all up and down the lakeshore. We had participation from other communities talking about what are they doing about beach safety, how are they keeping people from drowning, how are they making so people understand when it's dangerous, when it's safe, what to do about it, how to keep yourself out of trouble. So a lot of ideas were exchanged, and a lot of times you really learn a lot by seeing, you know, Muskegon has a very robust program. They've been doing this for a long time. Ludington has some things they're doing at their state park in collaboration with their sheriff's department. South Haven has been studying this all summer. They put a task force together because they had an unfortunate number of drownings in South Haven. We were fortunate this year we had none, but we did have a couple of close calls. And you know, in previous years we've had our share of tragedies. So a lot of it was, what's the common message? What's the, how do we make sure everybody who comes here, whether they're from Michigan, from away from the lake, or near the lake, or another state, how do they understand what's going on with the lake and what the hazards are, and make sure everybody gets the same message and the same caution. Our friends at the state park are talking about working with a fellow named Tim Wheeler to produce basically a cartoon book of beach safety. He produces cartoon books aimed at young children up to 4th grade reading level for getting messages across, whether they're, he does a lot of different messages for children to make their lives better. His mission is to rescue childhood, and he does it in a very, very thoughtful way. But they're working with him to develop a beach safety book, something that could, if we get all the area municipalities kicking in some money, we can get a lot of these printed for a relatively low price. So a lot of that came out of our beach safety meeting. It was great to have a meeting like that. I'm sure we'll have another next year. I think South Haven was talking about hosting it. So it'll be an ongoing story, but an ongoing learning process for all of us. We also had a meeting with Wolverine Pipeline Company. They were talking about maintenance and cleaning of their pipeline and telling us what's going to be going on and what to watch for. They talked to our emergency responders, teed up all the emergency situations that could happen, made sure we were aware of what they were going to do. They basically got 91-mile long pipeline they need to clean out, basically all in one big shot, and do some maintenance on it, pressure test it. They're going to hydrostatically test it, and it's going to just confirm the safety of the pipeline. It delivers a lot of material all the way up from the Chicago area all the way up to Ferrysburg, plus other areas. So that was very interesting. Good to see them reach out to us and make sure we're aware of what they're doing and what to do about it if something goes terribly wrong, which we're planning on that not happening. I attended the PC meeting last week, and that was interesting. They had interesting conversations, a few cases they dealt with there. Again, enjoyed the Odd Side Ales tour. They're up to 44,000 square feet of space they occupy. They started with a couple of vats over here down here on First Street. I mean, they started small, built that up. It's a huge facility now. Shipping all over the country, homegrown industry. I mean, how can you get better than that? Great attention to detail, to quality, to cleanliness, to taking care of their customers, all these things. So, man, what a success story that's been. And I think that's about enough for me for this one. So I guess at this point, I would turn it over to Pat for the city manager's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. Was talking to Bob earlier today, and he was looking at some of the meaty items that are on this city manager's report, and he hit it on the head as I give these reports, and I study you very carefully to see if anybody is scowling or sticking their tongue out. It's hard to tell with the mask on, but I'll do the best I can. I'm not asking for your approval. I'm just reporting and making sure you're well aware of some of the things that are going on here. One is prosecutor services. Public safety has been talking for some time about possibly looking at what's available out there. The last time we looked closely at this was all the way back in 2005. So it's been a long time since we've been with the same program, so we're considering seeing what other attorneys are out there now. Last time we took proposals, there were only 2 that bid. There's a bunch of new attorneys who were probably just starting undergrad back then last time we first looked at it, so we thought it might be a good idea to do that. So I do intend to do that, but the attorney works for city council, so I tread carefully, and I want to make sure that that's something that you're okay with. And I've been talking to a few of you about it, but just wanted to make sure that I was planning to go forward with that, absent any contrary direction. The next up is the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA. Would like to get some discussion going. You know, we don't have to spend that money until 2026, but there's been some interest that we get going on discussing how much money's coming in and how it might be used. Rather than come here and during an open work session, lay out, any number of options and just start blue skying, I thought it'd be a good idea to get a small committee together of a couple council members to just sit down and talk about process, framework, how you're going to judge what areas you'd like to focus on. So I'm looking for 2 volunteers. And depending on who volunteers, I'll set up a time that works for those 2. So I don't know if there are any, maybe you want to email me or the mayor wants to appoint somebody, but.
I'd be pleased to be a participant.
Okay, that's one. Oh,
Ryan,
Fritz.
go ahead.
I think you probably
Okay,
got
Ryan and Bob, okay.
Otherwise, I would, no matter.
Whatever we come up with, we'll come back to the full council in any event, so this really is just sort of grunt work, sorry guys, but.
Well, I mean, just so we're clear, this is not a decision-making subcommittee. This is basically setting parameters for discussion among council members.
Correct. I just thought it'd be better to do some brainstorming with a couple elected officials, and then come back with some ideas about what the next steps might be. You might decide to blow it wide open and do a big public committee and a town hall meeting type format. You might decide to prioritize and publicize those thoughts and see what kind of feedback you get. I'll look forward to talking to you 2 guys, and Amy Bessinger will be there as well, and we'll pick your brains and see how it is you want to proceed. But Amy's done a great deal of work evaluating the permissiveness of the act and what we can and can't do, and she's got a very, very good handle on it. We've had an outside CPA firm verify all of her findings, so we're feeling very confident right now and are ready to sit down with you two guys. So we'll do that in the next couple weeks. Beach nourishment. The Army Corps is looking at doing more outer harbor dredging next spring. And you might remember this past spring, or actually well into the summer, they got going a little late. They were pumping those dredge materials up onto the beach in front of the state park. They're wanting to do it again next year, and they're deciding what they're going to do with those spoils. And there's basically three options. One is to go further down south of the pier to fill that in down by City Beach, just like they did by the State Park Beach. So I encourage you, I know the mayor walked down there and kind of checked it out this weekend if you want to go down and see what the quality of the material is and what it looks like there. Now's a really good time to look at it because Bob was telling me today a lot of that surface white fine sand is blown off and you really see what's there. The other alternative is to go north of the pier, and we've had some interest from residents north of the pier to have the dredge materials dumped on that side. And then the third option is they bring it out into Lake Michigan and just deposit it out in the lake. And it just sort of scatters around the lake bottom. They made it clear that anything we get back to them on is strictly advisory. They're going to make a decision and they will do what the federal Army is going to do. I'm not going to try to stop them, but they're very interested in what your preferences are, and they'd like to get those preferences before they finalize their plans. So I thought it might be a good idea to put it on the November 1st agenda as a public discussion, or at least a public hearing, particularly for those residents north of the pier. If they're either they want it or they don't want it. You know, you don't want to go give the Army advice and then find out that your own residents weren't on board with that. So I think it'd be a good idea to get the word out to those North Shore residents. And like I said, we got feedback when they were pumping it this last spring. A couple of them called and said, hey, how come they're not pumping that over here? We want some of that. It's like, well, if you want it, we could definitely ask for it. So we'll do that, and I just wanted you guys to be aware of that. Finally, almost finally, Waverly Vacation public hearing on November 1st. Planning Commission did vote last Tuesday night to send that back to City Council with a positive recommendation. So you'll be seeing that at your next meeting. We'll have a public hearing, which is required. Then you may want to vote on that at that time, or I guess it's up to you guys how you want to handle it at that point. But I believe after that public hearing that you've got a green light to go ahead and approve it and make those things happen and vacate that street so that development can happen at the old Merle Bowes site there on Waverly. And they've got a nice looking project to reuse a tired property. They have indicated they'll likely be talking to us about brownfield support as well, so you can expect that shoe to drop in the coming months. And finally, Ryan provided me with an article from USA Today about the top 10 autumn beaches, or beaches to visit in the fall. Yeah, fall destinations, and I don't remember what some of the other compared Cape Cod.
Yeah, Cape Cod, Massachusetts, Virginia Beach, San Diego, yeah, some pretty big names on there to compare us to.
Yeah, so we're in select company, and that's to visit in the autumn, so events like the Oktoberfest and the Chow Down Centertown and some of these, like the Social District, which Jeremy, we're thinking of maybe this Friday kickoff. We're almost sure, everything's almost right in place, but if that's the case, we want to do a big blast-off event this Friday and make kind of a big deal about it. But we think with that quick notice to the media, we'll get some good regional exposure and probably have a pretty busy weekend this weekend. It looks like it might be a little chilly, but I was in downtown Grand Rapids this weekend, and I was surprised at the number of people wandering around with drinks in there. I had no idea that young people feel like walking around on sidewalks, sipping beers. They weren't being unruly or anything. They were just out there socializing with friends. So that's all I had tonight, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thanks. And just follow up on the beach nourishment. One of the issues that has been brought up at the state park from the beach nourishment that was done this past year, not so much the year before, but this past summer, an awful lot of small shells have been brought up from the river bottom, whether they're zebra mussels or something else. I don't know what they are, but there's a lot of them, and they're small, fine, and evenly distributed, as the finer sand blows around on the beach surface. That whole beach is just speckled white with these little shells. Now eventually they will break down and will, they'll eventually go away, but you'll probably see more of that when they do more beach nourishment. So the trade-off is, do you want the extra real estate with sand deposited there with that in it, or do you want to just let nature take its course on beaches? So I guess that's something, but I think the idea of a public hearing on this is outstanding. I think that's a great way to find out what people really want. Yes, sir.
It sure beats asphalt.
Chunks of asphalt.
How many times have you seen them go out there with their front end loaders and just take and dump the asphalt from the breaking asphalt they had there? The seashells, I can live with that, but the asphalt, when they had the bad roadways, they would go in there with their front end loaders and dump it on the beach, so.
Yeah, we don't want that either.
Yeah, so I can live with seashells over asphalt. But it'd be good to have a public hearing on it, though.
Yep.
I thought I'd remind you of that, Bob, about the asphalt.
Okay. Well, I wasn't advocating for asphalt. I was advocating
I wasn't
for
advocating for it
public
either.
input.
That's why we complained to them about it.
Okay. All right. So, any other comments on any of Pat's report from anyone? Pat, did you get the nods and the strange looks from us that you were looking for?
I did.
Okay.
I could feel it, so I know what to keep working on.
All right. Good. And that brings us to our second call to the audience. This is your second opportunity to address council. At this time, members of the audience may address council on any item, whether on the agenda or not. Those addressing council are asked to provide their name and address. Will be limited to 3 minutes of speaking time. Council will hear all comments for future consideration, but will not have a response at this time.
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Miller. I live at 1120 South Harbor Drive. I just wanted to bring to the council's attention that the Board of Light and Power Board of Directors will be meeting this Thursday at 4 o'clock. And possibly on the agenda is the financial disposition of the boilers that are out on Harbor Island. I have written a letter that appeared in the Grand Haven Tribune advocating that any decision should be postponed until after the election, which would mean their November meeting. But they may choose to decide on Thursday how to deal with the boilers and their associated costs. And there are multiple options. One is that they could write it off in a goodwill gesture to show that they're part of the community and only charge the city $1. They could also decide that they want all the money that they've incurred upfront from the city right now. Or they could suggest perhaps maybe over a 20-year period, the city pay them $50,000 a year. Any and all of those possibilities are out there. But I think the meeting on Thursday is an excellent opportunity for any or all of council to be in attendance at their meeting to share your thoughts on the matter and what you think would be a good gesture, whether financially or in a goodwill manner. So I'd also like to remind you that at that meeting will be the last time Jack Smant will be chairing the meeting and the last time that John Nasser will be there as a director. They've done wonderful work for the community over the years, and it would be a good opportunity and another nice goodwill gesture to have the two bodies sort of recognize one another by having your presence at their meeting. With that, I'll leave that topic for you to mull over and decide whether your time would be well invested in attending. Though keep in mind that when the mayor, as a goodwill gesture and trying to advocate that the Board of Light and Power need not apply for their air permit, despite his best efforts and wonderful arguments, it fell on deaf ears. But try again, I think, and keeping the channels of communication open between the two bodies, I think, is very important, both now and in the future. And then lastly, just as a follow-up to what Councilman Cummins mentioned earlier, there will be a rally to try and get younger people engaged in the community and to vote. That will be on Thursday, the 28th of October, from 6 to 9 at the Armory. We're trying to encourage people under the age of 50 to attend, to show their interest, and there'll be different ways in which they can engage the organizers to prioritize their concerns, whether it's housing, public safety, the environment, education. But we're really trying to get young people to be engaged in our nonpartisan electoral process. So whatever you can do to encourage people to attend that would be appreciated. And even though only one of the 5 of you is under 50 years of age, you guys are all welcome to attend.
50 was the cutoff, man.
I barely passed.
Sorry, Jeff, I am over 50.
Oh, okay, all right. Great, so again, thanks, and again, think about what's going on with the Board of Light and Power this coming Thursday at 4 o'clock. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff.
What time was that at, Jeff?
It's at the Armory, and it's from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
And also, for those in the listening audience, the first 50 people in attendance get a free ticket for a free beverage at the Armory.
Get there at 5:30.
Who else would like to address council? Last chance. You may.
As I said earlier, I'm Cody Arnold, 14882 Spring Lake Drive in Spring Lake, born and raised here in Grand Haven. I've had some travels throughout my years here as an adult. I've even come to Haiti on a mission trip funded through here in church in Grand Haven. And what I experienced there was transformational. What I witnessed is true poverty and something that we are far from here in the States and specifically here in Grand Haven. With that, it sort of enlightened me to a principal idea of the need for us in a position of blessings to spread that across the community as far and wide as we can. And the work I've heard of tonight is going to be doing that when it comes to the housing program and the things that you're going to be doing towards that. I just want to mention as a younger person in that I personally don't drink alcohol or do any drugs for the reasons I stated earlier. Knowing that, I've noticed that there's been a strong encouragement of the breweries and things like that and the things that it's being brought to the community. As I do see that as a benefit, I also see the need for us to look at healthy and safe ways to bring more people to the community and how we can encourage that and support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Last call. Okay, seeing no one else coming to the podium, I will close the call to the audience. Is there any further business or comments before we adjourn? If not, then this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.